NATO boss floats 100 billion euro military aid fund for Ukraine. Everybody starts floating around ideas. Macron is like, let's send armies to Ukraine. Boss of NATO is like, let's give them 100 billion. A lot more than the US. We're one up the US because, yes. And then it just, I mean, okay. Talk is cheap. Talk is cheap, and you know what I mean, right? Anybody can talk. I can float around an idea of sending 200 billion euro to Ukraine. I can do that. It is a thing within my powers to do. Okay, let's just look at the article. Uh-oh. There you go. That's better. There we go. Brussels, April 2nd, Reuters. NATO boss Jens Stoltenberg has proposed a 100 billion euro, $107 billion, 5-year package of military aid to Ukraine that would give the Western alliance a more direct role in providing support to Kyiv, 5 diplomats said on Tuesday. Under the plan, NATO would take over some coordination work from a US-led ad hoc coalition known as the Rammstein Group, a step designed in part to guard against any cut in US support if Donald Trump returns to the White House, diplomats said. The proposal is expected to be discussed at a 2-day meeting of NATO foreign ministers on Wednesday and Thursday, with the aim of finalizing a package in time for a NATO summit in Washington in July. Until now, NATO as an organization has restricted itself to non-lethal aid for Ukraine out of fears that a more direct role could trigger an escalation of tensions with Russia. Most of its members provide weapons to Ukraine on a bilateral basis. But diplomats said there was a growing view within NATO that the time had come to put military aid to Ukraine on a more sustainable, long-term footing, and the Western alliance was best placed to take on much of that role. 100 billion. Well, let's see. Let's continue. The article starts with hype. The article says it's time for NATO to do much more. It's time for NATO to take on a much active role. It's time for NATO to give $100 billion euro, $107 billion. Some also said that threats by Russian President Vladimirovich Putin that he would regard various steps taken by NATO allies as escalatory had not led to retaliatory action against them. As part of the plan, NATO would create a NATO mission for Ukraine, although it was yet unclear whether the mission would operate inside the country, diplomats said. Some countries were cautious about even naming the operation as a mission. Stoltenberg, NATO's Secretary General, has said the plan is partly to shield against winds of political change, and any NATO member, but Trump is uppermost in the minds of many, a senior NATO diplomat said. NATO declined to comment in detail on Stoltenberg's proposals, but a NATO official said foreign ministers would discuss the best way to organize NATO's support for Ukraine to make it more powerful, predictable, and enduring. No final decisions are to be taken in April. Ministerial meetings and discussions will continue as we approach the Washington summit in July, the official said, declining to be named. Wanted to be anonymous forever. Anonymous official. No final decisions. There you go. No final decisions are to be taken at the April ministerial meeting. Yes, that's a pretty big thing for me, that no final decisions are to be taken at the April ministerial meetings. So, in other words, it's going to be taking time, because I love how Ukraine desperately needs help now, needs ammunition now, needs support now. But then basically orgs, alliances, unions float around ideas of helping somehow, sometime, if everybody approves. Maybe. But maybe not as much as we're floating around now. Maybe much less someday. Diplomats cautioned that discussions on the proposal were at an early stage, and it wasn't clear whether the 100 billion euro total would be accepted or how it would be financed. So NATO is promising 100 billion euro without knowing where it will get the money from, how it will be financed. That's never a good sign. Bonjour. All NATO decisions require consensus among the alliance's 32 members, by the way, which somehow, for some reason, I do not see all 32 NATO members agreeing to a 100 billion euro thing. For some reason, I think at least one NATO member will say no. I'm pretty confident that there will not be an anonymous agreement to this by all 30. I mean, maybe I'm just a doomer, negative person, but I just feel like I don't see it. I just don't see it. It goes some way to protecting in case of Trump, but it is impossible to create something Trump-proof, said another diplomat, who probably also chose to be anonymous. A fund of 100 billion looks very optimistic, knowing how difficult it was to agree on a smaller amount at EU level, the diplomat added. So basically, what I said earlier. People are skeptical. It'll take a long time to agree upon. And also, it needs consensus among the alliance's 32 members. So, while the headline feels very hype, while it all sounds amazing, the amount of 100 billion euros sounds like a great amount of money to give to Ukraine. It feels like something that would be a, dare I say, game changer. But then you read further and you find, well, no decisions are going to be really made till like this month. And by the way, we need a consensus. And by the way, we don't really think that it's going to be necessarily this amount of money. It's probably going to be less. Like, okay. So, I guess what I want to say is I threw the thing out there that it's happening. I spread the word that this sort of thing has been floated It floated out like a balloon full of helium. And I guess that's it. There's nothing else that we can talk about this. Apart from, once again, me stressing that talk is cheap and that it's quite easy to speak of billions upon billions that could be possibly given sometime, and of sending soldiers and doing all those other wonderful things that are so wonderful that at the end of the day mean nothing unless action follows. You know, talk is cheap. Talk is extremely cheap. It costs nothing. It is so easy to make promises. Oh, this is not even a promise. This is just saying we could do this. Maybe. Possibly. Someday. So yeah, this is like the first real topic of today. How do you feel? Do you feel hyped? Do you feel better? Do you feel better about the whole situation? Who needs the US? NATO's gonna give 100 billion euro. For sure. Surely, for sure. And then we're all gonna be saved. We're all gonna be saved. In fact, I'm calling it now. I'm saying I'm gonna be a predictor. I'm gonna do one of those famous Hello Nick Express. Hello Nick Express. Welcome to the stream. What brought you to this stream? How did you find this stream? Are you enjoying yourself? You're the bulk of my Twitch audience, Nick Express. So I'm gonna make a bold prediction, because as we know, the best way to be commenting on politics such as this is to make bold predictions. So I'm gonna make a prediction. Not only is NATO gonna give one, what is this stream about? So right now it's about, well, it's gonna be about Ukraine. A lot of it's gonna be about Ukraine, and also it's gonna be about immigration. Spoiler alert. I'm gonna be talking about immigration and about Trump, fear-mongering about immigration. So if these topics interest you, then stick around. You might learn some new developments. So I'm gonna be comparing it to Europe. I'm gonna be comparing it to Poland. I'm from Poland. I'm the biggest Polish trans Jewish streamer. I've got a lot of titles under my belt. I've got a lot of titles to live up to. Do you watch any other political streamers, Nick Express? Do you watch anyone else from the political category on Twitch? Is this your first rodeo with political Twitch? No, you're the first one. Oh! Wait, so you've never watched? I'm your very first political streamer? Damn, I better do a good job. I better do an excellent job. I better be responsible with my platform right now, and I better give you the responsible and the good experience. So what I'm gonna say, in the spirit of that, is that not only is NATO gonna give 100 billion euro, in fact, France is going to send a huge army to Ukraine, and the huge army, and Poland also is going to send a huge army, and those armies are going to be equipped with top of the line gear using the $100 billion from NATO. I'm calling it now. This is going to happen. This is definitely going to happen. You're going to see. You're going to see that I'm going to be right.